Okay, so I think I'm doing it. I think we're good. All right. So yeah, I wanted to do a. This is my first time trying this, and I don't know how well it's going to work, but I'm going to do a live video review of the HTC Vive. Not because I have a bunch of HTC Vive footage at the ready, although I do have a bunch of backup footage that I thought I would work or I would use, but I'm not. But yeah, I just wanted to actually try out this thing and try out my new Yeti microphone here. See how that works. See how the live streaming works, the encoder and everything. All right, so a bit of backstory about the HTC Vive. And by the way, I should probably put this on Facebook, which I'll do now, and see if there is, if anybody wants to join the conversation. And I think you can actually add your comments in the chat area of the live stream. If you want something answered or you have questions that I'm not about the Vive that I'm not going into. Yeah, so I got the HTC Vive in April when it first launched. Let me just type this out. I'm live streaming my review. HTC Vive right now. Come join, troll me in the comments. Like the video, subscribe, and of course, something funny. What's something funny? And of course, I don't know. Be festive for the holidays. Why not? Okay. So that's that. I'm going to post that to Facebook. And then next up, I'm going to put something on the Twitter. How's the Twitter? The Twitter. Sorry, this is not how I normally do videos like this. This is the first time. So, okay, yeah, got the HTC Vive when it first launched in April. I, as many of you probably know, I used to work at HTC, and I was very enthusiastic about the Vive. And so, I had pre-ordered my Oculus Rift, and I saw that the Vive was shipping, and it was shipping sooner than the Rift, and I thought, it's a couple $100 more. I'll have to build a PC from scratch, which was kind of fun. And I feel like I did a good job. Either way, and the HTC Vive, not only do I have familiarity with the company and what they're going for, but it has the backing of Steam and their new VR initiative, and Steam is a great content marketplace for gamers, and they're looking to expand into VR. But also it has touch controllers, and it's made for room scale. Room scale meaning you can walk around in a large space. At that time, there was nothing out for room scale. And Oculus had only said that they were going to eventually release touch controllers. It didn't say when, and it almost slipped into next year, but now they've got them launched. But Oculus Rift ships with one camera, so you're sitting at your desk and you use an Xbox controller and you play games. And so basically you're stuck in this almost 360-degree view. You can move around a little bit and juke and stuff, but it's not that much different than like a Gear VR or a Google Cardboard, in the sense that they don't have absolute positional tracking, so you can't move forward and look forward in the scene, but you can look around, and of course the Daydream has a little controller. But with the Oculus, it's much higher fidelity because it's PC, and you can look around a little bit, but you're still stuck in your seat. And with the Vive, it's like you can move around. I could still do the seated Oculus stuff. But I thought, it's cooler if I can actually walk around in a virtual world and touch stuff with controllers. So I got the Vive. I got it early. I started working on some demos for work on it. And I've tested, throughout the last, 6 months, I've tested just about every game that came out on Steam, wasting so much money, insane amounts of money on content. I also had every version of the Gear headset for the last, I think, 4 years. I have the Google Daydream. I had the first version of the Google Cardboard the day it launched, and I've played a lot with the Oculus Rift. I actually have the Revive hack, which lets you play Oculus content that you purchase in the Oculus store, but that's exclusive to the Oculus headset on HTC Vive, and I found that to be working practically flawlessly, especially the touch games. They're less restrictive, but of course the sitting ones as well work just fine with an Xbox controller. And then, of course, there's all the content on Steam VR that works on Oculus and on Vive, and a bunch that only works on Vive that's made for room scale VR with touch controllers. And I've played around with the PlayStation VR as well. I actually think that that system is way more than the sum of its parts. They did a great job with really old tech, inventive reuse of stuff, and a slow, a slow system. It's amazing how they put that together, and I actually kind of like the way the headset feels. So anyway, my point is I'm very familiar with the VR space, and I think I am qualified to give you guys my opinion about what I think about the HTC Vive several months on in comparison with everything else that's out there. Some stuff that's coming up, blah, blah, blah. All right, so let me start. I'm going to try to actually just send out this tweet, and then I'm going to talk about first the hardware, and then I'm going to talk about the software experience, and then I'm going to talk about the content experience, which is different in my opinion than just how the VR works, and then I'm going to talk about the sort of the future and what's a good investment and whether or not you should buy it or buy something else. But first, let me send out this tweet. So come join and be festive. Let's see. Tweets are always hard. You gotta make sure you get them in 140 characters. Like, subscribe, be festive. Gosh, come on, -3. Troll me in comments. There we go. Boom. All right. Hello. Come on, Twitter. Come on, Twitter. There you go. Thank you. All right, so if you guys want to comment, I'd love to go deep on anything you have questions about. But first, I want to talk about the HTC Vive hardware. Hang on one sec. I'm going to get a visual edit. It's easy because these controllers are, touch controllers, which is great. So, the hardware. First of all, the HTC Vive was a first of its kind. There have been virtual reality headsets out there in the past, but this is something that anybody could buy. It cost $800, and you could put it in your house and use it. And it was meant for consumers, although it's really much more of an alpha adopter product. And I was so pumped. This is a game changer. It's also the highest end, like I said, shipping with room scale and touch controllers you could get. Of course, you have to have a PC that can support it. But it has room scale, which is incredible. So the hardware itself, though, in terms of comfort, like these controllers, initially I didn't like them. But of course, half the games I play, I'm using like a gun to shoot stuff, right? So these I really like. I played around with the Oculus Touch controllers, and I gotta say, I don't. Maybe it's just because I'm not that used to them, but I don't really like them. I don't want a controller to mimic my hand. I want my hand to mimic my hand. So when a controller tries to pretend like it's not there, I think that's silly. We either do it with like inside out positional tracking, and it can view your hands and see what you're doing, or let's have a controller and make it feel like you're holding something. So I know it's weird, I really like this sort of like saucer configuration because it's very extensible. It's got the touchpad, it's got the trigger. It feels great when you're shooting weapons and stuff, or really anything, gripping something. It's got little grip buttons, which most people don't use, but some games have made use of them. I find them kind of hard to explain to other people. I really like the way it can see where you are in the trackpad. You can add that logic to the game. You can bifurcate this or make it like 5 different things. I really like the trackpad. Some people say they miss the gamepad of the Oculus Touch. Honestly, like if I want to use a gamepad, I'm not using a touch controller. I'm going to use a gamepad, like an Xbox one, which the Oculus already has, and which I would use for the Vive. But if I'm going to use a touch controller, I'm not trying to use a gamepad. I'm trying to use the touch controller. In my mind, they're very different things. So I don't actually miss the joystick, but if somebody does, let me know, because I don't miss it at all. So love these controllers more than many people. Now, I will say that I had one get banged up. Is it this? Yeah. So, and the warranty process for this is just terrible. It took forever. So, I mean, you really have to know that everything here is super delicate and still, and especially when I bought it, not shipping in like mass amazing quantities. So it's very slow to repair. Even HTC's own customer care, when I tried to get it repaired, didn't know what I was talking about. They kept referring to it as a phone. I'm like, this is not a phone unless I'm missing something. So just don't break your stuff, and it's still it's very expensive, but it's easy. It's easy to mess it up, right? If you're in games and you set up your boundaries wrong and you hit something with this, it can knock the tracking out. I did a bunch of DIY stuff. I took off the cover. There's some delicate stuff in here. These little divots reflect the light from the lighthouses, and I'll talk more about that in a second. So controllers are a yes, and they also make it easy to charge, which I guess Oculus didn't bother to do, so you have to put in batteries every so often. But I find these were really well thought out. I feel like they have multiple different use cases and they're perfect for the system. The headset is a big headset and it's heavy. But it also has, number one, the widest field of view out of any headset out there. I think it's like 115 degrees, whereas the second widest is the Gear VR, and it's 110 degrees. I think the Rift is 105. I could be wrong. I think the PlayStation, they're all around that, right? But the HTC Vive has technically the widest field of view when you push the controller in. It's also the most adjustable. So you've got 3 straps, right? 2 here, 1 here, and you've got an eye distance adjustment that you can crank so it can go closer together or farther apart depending on your eyes. You've also got a screen distance thing. You can actually change a circular thing that will put it farther away for people with glasses or people that aren't comfortable looking at something, I guess, that close. It doesn't make that much of a difference. But the trade-off is the field of view. So the closest to you will have obviously the widest field of view, and the farther away will have less wide. It's an AMOLED panel. It looks great. There is a bit of a screen door effect I've noticed, meaning like you can see the pixels on the side. I think each one is a 1080p display. So it's not even as high resolution as the mobile solution. So when you got a Google Pixel and a Daydream, that is a lot, what can I say, more pixel dense. There's still a screen door effect, and ultimately the frames per second, the smoothness and the consistency matters a lot more than how many pixels it's pushing. But when in VR, it does make a difference, and it's nice to have a crisp screen like this. Next generation ones hopefully will be higher resolution, and I hope they borrow from the PlayStation thing. So this is the other part I don't like. It kind of rests on my nose and my forehead. I have to strap it really tight, but I do like that there's a top strap so I can lift it up a little bit. It takes away a little bit of pressure, but it's just a big thing, and I've hit it multiple times. There are games that have you put stuff to your head, and it's hard not to hit the thing. And just like the controllers, it has these little divots, which is how it tracks, which reflect the infrared light that's being cast by the lighthouse stations. So the headset has a nice, comfortable, replaceable foam thing you can put around your head so you can sweat a little bit. It's not the most comfortable headset I've used. It's not the most ergonomic. It's not the most cool looking. But it is the most customizable, complete, functional. You can get it in a state that's comfortable for you. I hope that more adopt the PlayStation style where they put it's kind of like an adjustable strap and they put the pressure here on the back of your head and the visor sort of like rests. Now I guess the problem with that is you get light leak, whereas in the Vive you don't. You can make it so that you don't. But I know in a lot of these you get light leak, but apparently it works really well and there's not as much of a screen door effect and you don't have to adjust it all the time and you can get a little more sweaty easily. So there's improvements to be made there. Now, let's talk about the lighthouses. When I first got this, I thought, this is the most terrible, ridiculous thing ever because I had tracking issues and I didn't know what it was, and there were a bunch of problems that nobody had a solution readily available online. I mean, that's what happens when you are an early adopter, right? But now that competing solutions have come out there, and now that I looked at even a 3-camera arrangement with the Oculus Rift, I realized what amazing technology this is. And to be fair, Valve is the one that invented this lighthouse technology, and they've now open sourced that, so anyone can make peripherals. If you want to, see what I mean? It's easy to drop. Hey, chill, buddy. Chill. I'm watching somebody's dog. Live streaming for the win. Bomber. So this is my dog, Lily. Wait, Lily. There she is. She's like chilling here. This is crazy, scaredy puppy dog, Bomber. Bomber, chill, buddy. It's okay. It's okay, buddy. He's just a silly goober. He's young. But Lily's jealous, and that's why he barked. Sorry. It's just so stupid. I'm sorry. Bomber. It's okay. Nothing's there. Nothing's there. It was me. Yeah, it's okay. All right, so the deal is... what was I talking about? I was talking about, the lighthouse tracking stuff is amazing. It is really scalable, and when I compare it to Oculus's camera tracking stuff, they have not open sourced that, but basically Valve is saying if you want to recreate the Oculus controller in a different form factor than this, go for it. If you want to create different lighthouses, go for it. You can extend the platform, right? And HTC was obviously the reference flagship model for Steam VR, but it's using Steam's technology that they developed for the lighthouses, which is open source. And now I have such respect for it. It's still the only outside-in tracking system that does full position, floor to ceiling, kneel on the floor and grab something. Even the Oculus one that has a little bit of a gap depending on where you place it. And also the cable management stuff, it's not wireless. The lighthouses for the Vive are wireless, and they update wirelessly. And there's something, you just set it and you forget it if you set it right. And it scans your entire room, and the tracking's the best out of anything I've used by far. The little things make a difference, right? If you lose positional tracking because you're not facing an Oculus camera, well, that's not going to happen with the Vive if you set it up right. Now, again, that's a big if. There's a lot of contingencies, and it's sort of like, democracy is the best form of, or the worst form of government in the world, except for all the others. It's like, it's not great in terms of ease of setup, but it is the best I've seen for the best quality. Now, we'll talk in a little bit about the value, and if you get that much more with the Vive versus others, and if it's worth getting that if you're just going to get one thing. And a lot of that has to do with how much money you have, frankly, right? Some of it's about content, but I think it's mostly about money and bang for buck, especially this holiday season. But all right, so talking about, so that's the hardware. I think overall it's still the only commercially available experience that is virtual reality made for room scale. You can use a controller, but it's made to walk around, and the content reflects that. So before I talk about the content, let me talk about the software experience. You put on the headset, and again, the tracking works great. If you have a computer that's fast enough, I recommend a GTX 1080, that's what I have. It's worth every penny. It's such a leap over the 970 series, and it gets you 90 frames per second, butter smooth virtual reality. If you have a great PC that you build yourself, ideally, and you've got and you put on the headset and you use the controllers, it works like a dream. And there's a lot of content. Now we'll move into Steam VR. So the way you get content from the HTC Vive is through Steam. So Steam is the most popular game store in the world, more popular than any PlayStation or Xbox store has ever been. It's a PC gaming platform. It's the largest gaming platform in the world. And they're making a big push, obviously, into VR. So they have Steam VR, which is what launches when you try to run a game from Steam. Just ensures that everything's up and running. 2 controllers are up and running and charged. It'll even give you an indicator and tell you how charged. The lighthouses are up and tracking. The headset's up and tracking. Okay, good to go. And then you buy content, and you get it for free the same way you get any other Steam content. You just go into the Steam store and you download it, and it just works. So Steam is a great advantage. Their model so far has not been exclusive content. HTC itself has invested in some virtual reality startups via their Vive X program, and they still are, by the way. And also you've got the HTC actually saying that they're going to do first-party content, so some exclusive stuff. Valve is not saying, hey, work with us exclusively, no. But Oculus is, and that means that there's timed exclusivity for some games and experiences with Oculus. You've also got Oculus-developed first-party applications like Quill and Medium for productivity, and then you've got some gameplay experiences and some passive experiences made by Pixar people where you can look around. And it's like you're in a Pixar movie. So that stuff's exclusive. Now, the big workaround is that there's something called Revive. Revive essentially removes the headset check from any Oculus game. Now, you can buy the content legitimately on Oculus Home, and it'll say, hey, you don't have an Oculus headset. We don't detect it, but if you want to buy this, feel free. And you're like, okay. And then you buy it, and then you literally just play it. Revive is so great. It's so easy to install and use. It's just a dashboard that appears in your overlay when you get in virtual reality. And you can just pick Revive and click any of the content you've downloaded from Oculus Home. There's a couple of caveats. You don't want to keep it open, Oculus Home that is, and it can potentially be buggy, but I haven't found a game yet where it just doesn't work. And all the new touch content like Dead and Buried works great on Vive. It's made exclusively for Oculus. I think it might even be an Oculus Studio. But it's like a quick draw Western type of thing. It's great. Works perfectly with the Vive controllers. In fact, I aim even better with the Vive controllers, and I've seen other people online say that they aim their gun even better. It's a multiplayer game, and it's really cool. The production values are high. But anyway, unfortunately, all the exclusive content is going to be on Google Daydream, on Oculus Rift, and then there will be a breadth of content on Steam VR. Right now there are a lot of things that only work on Vive, but they're adding Oculus Touch support. And what I see in the future is that that's going to be the common platform for all these things. They might even extend to have, I don't know, mobile experience through Google Play for Daydream, who knows. But they're not going to have the exclusive content. But if you have Revive, you can have any of the content for Oculus, which is really the only other content you'd want if you're a Vive owner, and all of the content for Vive. Now, the reverse of that is not as easy. If you have an Oculus Rift, not only do you have to ghetto rig, a room scale situation, which it's really not made to, and I've heard that you need 4 to accurately do it in all 4 parts, or it'll lose tracking. Even 3, it'll lose tracking, and it won't do a lot of the ground and high up, and it's a limited space. So you end up probably paying more, because I think they're almost $100 each for extra cameras and for the touch controllers and the Oculus bundle and the PC than you would for the Vive, which is already made for room scale. So if you're looking for the highest end thing where you can get all of the content you want and you don't mind doing Revive because you're paying for the content, which Oculus wants you to do anyway, it's kind of like a wink wink to the community, I think. Get the Vive. It's the best. It's the only one you need. But again, it costs $200. I'm sorry, $800 without tax, almost $1,000 with tax. Throw in another, let's say, $1,500 to build a really awesome desktop PC with everything you want. That's $2,500. So, as we start to talk about, killer apps for virtual reality that would make you get it, there aren't any. There's, Google's Tilt Brush, which is impressive. There's a lot of really cool tech demos with different locomotion methods, which means, you get sick if you move around and your body doesn't feel like it's moving. So there are ways around that, right? Like you can teleport, you can move fast and they narrow your vision. There are other things people are doing. There's something called Ninja Run. So they're still envisioning how you move around these virtual worlds when you can actually walk around. And it's kind of an exciting time if you're really into it. But there's no killer app. I can't say that there is. There are some fun ones that I go back to. There's one called Audio Shield. It's essentially like a DDR kind of thing, but in virtual reality, and you can play any song you want from YouTube. Go back to that a lot. It's a lot of fun, 4 to 10 minute play sessions. And then there's some fun shooter games like what's it called? The scary game. It's called the something project. Oh, why is the name escaping me? The Brookhaven Experiment, I think it's called. Yes. That's fun and scary. And then there's also Space Pirate Trainer, which is a ton of fun. Actually, Fruit Ninja VR is fun. All of these are room scale, by the way. They take advantage of room scale. All right, so now if we talk about value, let's talk about value. So we already talked about HTC Vive and Oculus Rift. Again, like I said, for all the reasons I mentioned, everything you can do on Oculus Rift, you can do on HTC Vive, and a lot more, and it's made for room scale. But you can also sit down and play Oculus games through Revive if you purchase them on Oculus Home, which I have done legitimately. And then, it ends up being about the same price, or maybe even a little less expensive than Oculus when you factor in, you purchase Oculus for $600, you purchase Oculus Touch for an extra $100 or $200. You got to purchase, and it comes with a second camera, which lets you do a tiny bit of front-facing room scale, kind of like PlayStation VR. If you want to buy a third camera, that's another $100. If you want to buy a fourth one, that's another $100. You're way above the Vive now, anyway. So then let's talk about the PlayStation VR, because that's the only really major commercially available virtual reality headset that has any sort of positional tracking. Now, I'm amazed by PlayStation VR. First of all, I'm amazed that it even runs at all on a PlayStation 4 from like 4 years ago, which was already based on dated hardware. It's amazing what they've done. Now, they have terrible cable management, so you got to put it through a pass-through device, which is going to do a bunch of reprojection to make it feel smooth and 90 degrees, and then it gets rid. Regardless of how the sausage gets made, you put on the headset, it looks incredible. A lot of that may have to do with their content. They have a really nice, the best stable of commercially available exclusive content. They've got Star Wars, Rogue One Mission, they've got Batman, Arkham Asylum, they've got AAA titles coming, they've got a ton of tech demos right now. So they've done a lot, and a lot of the stuff that's been for Vive, they've adapted. Now, you can't do full room scale, you can't even turn around, but because it uses this old, literally the PlayStation Eye from 2008, and it looks at the light and it sees where you are for your position. So if you can't see the light, it can't see you. So you can't really look behind you without it losing tracking. And I'm not even talking about the touch controllers. The touch controllers are PlayStation Move controllers from 6 years ago, from the PlayStation 3. They somehow reused it for virtual reality, which is amazing to me, but apparently it works really well, as long as it can see the lights. And you also look kind of cool and futuristic. So exclusive content is great for PlayStation. Bang for buck is incredible. If you have a PlayStation 4, all you got to do is pay a couple of $100 to get the PlayStation VR, and you've got everything you need. Oh, sorry, I think you have to buy a camera too, right? So this stuff you got to buy. There's a little stuff like that, but they have the best exclusive content. They've adapted some games really great, like Job Simulator works like a dream there. I'm shocked by this. It's amazing how they're doing this, and they're keeping the experience consistent and smooth, and it looks really good for the most part. Some games don't look that great, but most of them look like not that much worse than what you get on a Vive, like a brand new PC with a Vive high-end specs. One example is, like I said, Job Simulator. So they just moved everything to the front so you don't look behind you anymore, and it works perfectly. And it's really funny still. And Space Pirate Trainer, they're doing a version of that. There's a version of a bunch of the stuff you can already get for Steam and Vive and Rift to a certain extent. So for bang for buck, for value, for content library now, and commitment to that going forward, I would say PlayStation VR wins. I mean, it is more than the sum of its parts. It's using old technology on an old system that should be dead and buried, and it shouldn't even work properly, and it should reboot the system. I would expect it to be slow and to make you throw up all the time, but no. Everything works really great, and when you have it on, the headset is comfortable, the content is great, and it really feels like you're playing something that's almost as high quality as the HTC Vive with a few more limitations, but overall better, more polished content so far, although it's short. Everything's still a tech demo. So PlayStation VR is probably best bang for buck, and it has a lot of upside going forward. Oculus, obviously, there's a huge investment in that. HTC and Steam, obviously, a huge investment in that. So everybody's going to be moving full steam ahead. But as we go to the mobile stuff, if you just don't have enough money, so when talking PlayStation VR, it's under $1,000 even if you don't have anything right now. And it's under $500 if you have some things, and it's under $300 if you have a camera and a couple of other things. So, it's a lot cheaper for something that's almost as good, which is great. And then you got, the Google Cardboard and Samsung Gear. I don't even think those are in the same universe, really. All you can do is like move your head 360 and use some like Wiimote Lite controller on the Daydream View, and maybe pair a Bluetooth controller on the Gear VR, or just like swipe at your head. It's not the same experience at all. Maybe for passive viewing of content like movies, if you want to simulate a giant movie screen and you want to lay on your back and look at a movie from Mars or whatever, okay, but they're just not really in the same universe, and I can't really get excited for them. So, but they'll be around, right? And especially the Gear VR makes a ton of money. I'm so surprised. Like, they have so many active users that spend so much money. They're making so much money for Oculus and Samsung. It's kind of amazing. So I'm glad they exist. But all right. So the conclusion is this: if you can afford it, the Vive is the greatest thing ever. If you can afford it, and you are an early adopter who's willing to put up with setup issues. Now, I would argue that the same setup issues will exist no matter what you get, unless it's a mobile one, because you need the outside-in positional tracking. Same for the Oculus, same for PlayStation VR. But it's for any of these, you're going to be an early adopter, and you got to kind of lean into all right, I get to build my own PC. I get to set the lighthouses in the optimal location and try to configure my place to have a huge amount of space to move so that I can get immersed in these worlds. Once you do that, once you put it on, once you open up Tilt Brush, which comes with it for free, and by the way, you can't get it on the Oculus Rift or the PlayStation VR yet, it's going to change your life. This is the best virtual reality experience still that I've had. You can have the best ones, the most immersive, incredible, like mind-altering virtual reality experiences on HTC Vive. I wholeheartedly recommend it for people like me who will put up with the pain of setting it up and keeping it up, and who are interested in the space. It's also very easy to build for, so you can use Unity, and Steam has done a great job putting a drag and drop plugin so that you can just add virtual reality functionality to any project. If there's a project you're working on in Unity and you just add the Steam VR plugin, all of a sudden you can pop on your headset and inhabit that world. They make it really easy to deploy, and they're also doing an in-VR editor, so you can create VR experiences in VR, and they showed that off with an HTC Vive as well. So overall, floored by the quality, and people are still figuring out. Everything's so new. It's incredible. I have such a soft spot for the HTC Vive, and I'm so glad that I got it. It's the only thing that I need, although I do have a cardboard view. And I highly recommend it, especially if you can get a hold of it this holiday season. They do sell it at the Microsoft Store. I know you can get it on Amazon. It seems like it's readily available, whereas to be honest, the Oculus Touch controllers still are delayed and not shipping right away. They really need to get their act together. But well, whatever. More for me, right? But yeah, let me know what you think. Leave some comments, with questions that you have or alternate opinions. It's still very early in the space. It's very exciting, and the Vive just represents to me the best currently available room scale experience you can get. Now, I know Microsoft has done a lot of their inside-out positional tracking stuff with HoloLens, and now they've made that available to partners, and they're going to be launching a bunch of devices with HP and Lenovo and stuff like that, which will let you just put on a device which has an onboard computer, and you can walk around and it's just scanning your 3D surroundings, and it does room scale without the need to place cameras, which is a billion times better. It's the future. And also the Vive is tethered. Everything's tethered. Once we get wireless or onboard computer here, it's going to be holodeck. It's holodeck. I mean, the HTC Vive is actually the holodeck. If Star Trek doesn't capitalize on this and come out with a holodeck application next year, they're just failing. That's just like printing money. Just please, people just begging, like, give me your money, right? Or I want to give you my money. Anyway, get the Vive. It's good. If you can't afford it, get the PlayStation VR. It's great. If you're not interested in active content or walking around, just get a mobile player. Just get a Google Cardboard and use it on your iPhone or whatever you got, right? It's great. You don't really need the Daydream View. It's not that much better than Cardboard. And, it only works on a few phones. So get a Vive. That's my point. All right. Thanks, you guys. Like this video, share it, and comment, please. And have great holidays. Have happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Happy Kwanzaa. Happy Hanukkah. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Deuces. I don't know how to stop this.